Yo, what's up guys, it's Bluestone, and before I get into today's video, let me just say that literally 100% of y'all who watch my videos are not subscribed. And it would be greatly appreciated if you like and subscribe because it would really help on my channel. Now let's get into the video. 2025 has been a interesting year so far, I guess I could say. And there's some pretty good games that released this year, though I only played like 4 games, but well, no, I played 5, but one of them I actually despised. I played games like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black and the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remake, but I didn't actually finish it. I did finish Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, however, but yeah, I didn't really like that game very much, which might actually be a hot take. I actually plan on playing the 4th Ninja Gaiden game as well, but that game releases in October. Anyway, another game I played from this year actually became my favorite game of the year, and that game is the first Berserker Khazan. And yes, it's another goddamn Souls-like. But this game is different, mostly because it's a Souls-like based in the Dungeon Fighter universe. And let me clarify that I've never actually heard of Dungeon Fighter until I played this game. Well, not really, actually. I did know about Dungeon Fighter, only because I have DNF Duel in my Epic Games library. Though I originally thought that it meant did not finish Duel, but I learned later that I was actually Dungeon Fighter. Anyway, I digress. Like I mentioned before, Khazan is a Souls-like, and it was developed by a company named Neopol? Or Nipple? Whatever, man. And it was published by Nexon, who are the devs of Dungeon Fighter. This game reviewed pretty well. It had a 82 on Metacritic, but it's since dropped to 78, which still isn't bad. Though I do agree with one of the reviews where they say the bosses had bloated health bars. And yeah, they're right, because a lot of the bosses, especially near the end of the game, had like super bloated health bars. But I'll get to that in a later segment. And this game sold, I don't know how many copies. I was actually looking for how many copies it sold online, but I literally found nothing. Nexon did say that the sales were a little disappointing, but they are still happy to know that people are learning what Dungeon Fighter is, which is nice, I guess. Usually I would go over the development history, but I have no idea about the development history, so whatever. Anyway, in today's video, I'll be talking about Khazan, and yeah, there'll be spoilers for this game, so if you don't want to get spoiled, then click off the video. Anyway, time to get into the over. So the first Berserker Khazan is set in the Dungeon Fighter universe, or an alternative one, because in the main Dungeon Fighter universe, Khazan got executed, but in this game, he didn't get executed. Instead, he was possessed by this guy named Blade Phantom, who serves the king of the underworld named Karen. And this guy is not really relevant in the plot line whatsoever. And yeah, this game is set in a different timeline than the main one. And yes, I learned this from Google. So the plot of the game goes like this. Khazan and his best friend Ozma go and kill the Berserk dragon Hismar, and then after the deed was done, the two were celebrated as heroes, but the Emperor did not like the fact that they were receiving more praise than him. So he decided to frame Khazan and Ozma, labeling them as traitors, so Ozma gets executed. And Khazan gets exiled to the mountains, and yeah, also they cripple his arms so he can never use a weapon again, which is fudging crazy. Man, the Emperor sucks, man. Anyway, when Khazan is being transported via carriage, the Blade Phantom appears and destroys the carriage, taking Khazan, and then Blade Phantom possesses Khazan. But Khazan doesn't want to be possessed, so then he scales the mountain and completes 3 trials from the Bantu gods to remove Blade Phantom from his body. But then instead he makes a deal with the Blade Phantom, and the deal is that Blade Phantom helps Khazan get revenge, and then Khazan helps Blade Phantom restore order to the Netherrealm. And throughout the plot, you learn more about this betrayal and learn more about the forces behind said betrayal, and those forces deal with chaos. And you first learn about chaos via this guy named Maluka, aka the leader of some group of thieves, and this is where the second half of the game begins. I don't know why, but I feel like the second half of this game is much better than the first half, and I do want to say that the story in this game is pretty good. And there are moments that can be a little odd, but yeah, this game has a pretty solid story, and I very much enjoyed it. Of course, there's more to the story than what I just explained, but I don't want to spoil too much of the story because, well, I have a habit of doing that I'm not doing that again. Also, the title screen for this game is literally a spoiler, and I literally did not know this until I was making the video. Also, I want to quickly talk about the characters in this game because this game features a lot of characters, and some of them are kind of relevant to the story, but the problem with this game is that none of the characters get character development. You do get to learn more about them via side missions, but that's it. The only character that gets featured more than some of the other characters in the story is this girl named Elamine, but despite her getting more screen time than the others, she still doesn't get much character development, and also she's pretty forgettable, to be frank. Other characters include this guy named Demok, or whatever. This guy's not relevant in the story at all, maybe for like 1 mission. And Yulian, this guy has a few side missions, and same with Tristan. There's also the blacksmith and this lady named Oksana. Blacksmith has like 1 side mission, and the old lady has like 2 kind of. And once again, these characters aren't much relevant to the story, as this game focuses on Khazan and the Blade Phantom the most. There's one other character, but I'll get to her in a later segment. And also, there's this other guy named the Jar Enthusiast, and you meet him through a side mission where you find his jars, and after this mission, you can now find a jar in each mission. I think there's only one jar in each mission. I think sometimes there's like 2, but I could be wrong. Anyway, the more jars you find, the more jars you'll be able to purchase. And the jars can increase stuff like strength and willpower or proficiency. But oh my gosh, it can be so expensive. They can cost up to $1 million. Also, this game runs on Unreal Engine, specifically Unreal 4 and not Unreal 5. When I first seen this game, I thought it was using Unreal 5, but actually, no, it was just using Unreal 4. And yeah, this game's performance is pretty good. It barely lagged and had no crashes, but for some reason, I kept running into weird lag spikes that made me think the game was gonna crash. But I only get this issue on my PC because when I played it on my Steam Deck, I never had this issue. Speaking of another issue I've never had on Steam Deck, the audio dying randomly. Yeah, for some reason I got this soul tear stone here and the audio just died. I didn't mute my PC or nothing, it just died, so I had to close the game and then open it back up to restore the audio. Khazan's got a lot going for it. Good gameplay and an intriguing and pretty good storyline. Missions with arguably better level design than Stranger of Paradise and the Neo games. I love Stranger of Paradise, but why are most of the missions in this game hallways? What the heck, Team Ninja, bro? Anyway. Now here's the best part of this game, the gameplay. This game probably has some of the best Souls-like gameplay on the market compared to some other games, but I feel like Liza P is still on top when it comes to gameplay, to be honest. Anyway, just like Stranger of Paradise, this game leans into the hack and slash genre, and it even has a mission-based story mode. It's like we never left the 2000s. So this game has 2 different attacks, light and heavy for swift and potent blows. You can get some skills that improve these attacks later, like the ability to charge them, and also skills that add more charges to them. So you can hold the button and get like 3 charges if you upgrade it enough, and it does a ton of damage. And speaking of skills, this game has a skill tree. I hate skill trees, but this game's skill tree is acceptable. This game has 4 skill trees: dual wield tree, greatsword tree, and spear tree, and the commons tree. Of course, via the names you can tell what the purpose of these trees are. The common tree is just for other skills unrelated to the weapons, like new mortal blow attacks. Yeah, not potent blow. I'll get to that in a second. So how do you get skills? Well, with skill points, of course. So you kill enemies and get XP and get skill points. Very simple. So in this game, you can get executions slash finishers, or what they're actually named in game, brutal attacks. Whenever this circle appears, you gotta press whatever button that it is. For me, it was X. And then you can deal a ton of damage to the enemy. Now, if you get the upgrade named execution, you can kill them with it. And you get a pretty cool animation with it as well. And also, the name brutal attack sounds kind of lame. I think they should have went with a different name, maybe. Anyway, I digress. So going more in depth on the skill tree, there are so many skills. Maybe even a bit too many. But I understand why they did it. This game lacks weapons, and there are only like 3 categories of weapons, which are dual wield, greatsword, and spear. Yeah, this kind of sucks. I'm not even gonna lie. I really wish there was more than 3 weapon types, but oh well. So you can get input skills, which are skills that require button combos. So you can have 3 skills in each set: the A set and the Y set. I only call them that because those are the buttons that you can use. Like, for example, A plus RT or Y plus RB. It's pretty unique, to be frank. I wish more Souls-likes had something like this. Anyway, input skills use Spirit or Fury. I could have sworn they were called Spirit before. Does it only change after you beat the game, or did they change it in an update? I'm so confused, man. So just like any other Souls-like, this game has New Game Plus. It only goes up to New Game Plus 2, which means after that, you can't play New Game Plus anymore, which certainly is a decision, I guess. New Game Plus doesn't add much besides an upgraded version of the lantern, which combines the features of every other lantern in the game, which is quite neat. And another thing the New Game Plus adds is more epic and legendary items, and the ability to craft said items. One thing that I find interesting about this game is the fact that the devs just kept updating the game, adding more quality of life changes, and like there's a huge update that literally revamped most of the game, actually. Well, that was an overstatement, but you know what I mean. This game has these checkpoint things, and they're named Blade Nexus. I don't know what the lore for these things are, but yeah, they're basically like the bonfires. You can even level up via these things, and to level up, you need Lacrima, which is this red stuff that comes out of enemies when they die. Also, if you die, you'll lose your Lacrima and respawn at a Blade Nexus, and then you'll have to go and retrieve the Lacrima you have lost.
Oh, so it's just like Dark Souls!
No, it's not. Actually, maybe it is just like Dark Souls.
So there is a blacksmith in this game, and he can craft the items, weapons, and armor sets. And yeah, that's all he does. To upgrade weapons, you have to do a side quest for this old lady and get a cube for her. And then using this cube will allow you to upgrade weapons, and you can upgrade them to legendary status, which is unique, I guess. But I prefer something more like Dark Souls. You can also change attributes and augment the weapon as well, which is pretty neat. This game unfortunately has something similar to the Neo games. It's how your inventory works. You have an inventory limit of 500 items, and also the drops for weapons and armor are randomized, and they have random effects. I hate this system so much, and I really don't understand why Souls-likes keep adding this garbage system. Well, it's only Team Ninja games in this game, but still, this system sucks. Lies of P and Lords of the Fallen 2023 definitely handled their inventory systems much better than this game. Man, I gotta finish Lords of the Fallen at some point. Also, Khazan in this game has a double trigger, and yes, I am not joking. And it gives him a completely different moveset, and heck, you can even equip different skills for his phantom form. And also, you can upgrade it via the skill tree, which is admittedly pretty cool. Also, before I forget, after an update on like June 27th, I think, female Khazan was added into the game, and yes, you can play as female Khazan. Unfortunately, though, when you play as her, some cutscenes are skipped. Actually, no, all cutscenes are skipped, and some conversations are muted. Actually, all conversations are muted, which is quite lame. They honestly could have just made new cutscenes for her and gave her a voice actress. But what's interesting is that she actually does make noises, which means she does have a voice. The question is, if you were planning on adding her from the start, why not just go all out? I really don't understand that decision, bro. Like, it's honestly baffling. Anyway, I think that's about it for the gameplay. I actually think that this game does a lot of stuff right, especially in its combat. I think the combat is the best part of this game, but the inventory system is definitely not one of its best aspects. They really could have done something better than using the Neo inventory system, man. So this game is a mission-based game, like I mentioned earlier, and missions can range from being pretty easy to SpongeBob, why? AKA kinda stupid. Don't get me wrong though, I really like the missions in this game, but some of the bosses at the end of these stages are, yeah, I'll get to that in a later segment. But for now, let me talk about the missions of this game. Okay, so I really like the main missions of this game. A lot of them are varied and have some pretty good level design. Sometimes the puzzles are brain dead easy, and also the length of some of the missions can be quite short, especially early game missions, and the length of the missions increases dramatically late game. And speaking of late game missions are pretty good and probably the best part of the game. The level design gets much better here. Also, the level theming is really interesting for a Souls-like. This game and Lies of P are the only Souls-likes with theater-based levels, and both of them are Korean games. What a strange coincidence. Side missions in this game are kind of bad, I'm not even gonna lie. The level design in these side missions are reused from other levels, and also the bosses are just recycled. Despite me liking this side mission, this one has this problem to a T, bro. There's this little dude named Xylence, and he is a dragonkin who was raised by humans, so he can talk, but his side missions reuse whole levels in the first one and the second one, and the bosses are also reused as well. Like, bro, it's just kind of sad, especially since you gotta fight poor little Xylence. Yeah, you gotta fight him at the end. It is what it is. Now, the second half of the game has some of the best missions in the game, and same with some of the side missions. One of my favorite missions from the second half is the El Ravnica village mission. This one starts out as a Resident Evil 4-esque area, and then you end up going to a fudging laboratory, and oh yeah, Elamine Fudging dies in this mission. You have to fight her as a boss fight because chaos took her over. It is what it is. I do find it funny how this girl was only in like 4 to 5 missions and she just dies, and they even have a cutscene showing how Khazan met her before as well. I feel like they could have done much better with her, you know, and didn't make her death feel so sudden. Also, they completely forgot about her later in the game. Wow. Now, after you beat a main mission in this area named the Linen Mine, you unlock some side missions, and 2 of them are these Linen Mine side missions. And guess what? They are the same fudging mission from earlier, and they only have like 1 or 2 differences. The first one is just an icy version of that mission, and the other one is just the intro segment with a boss added to it. Yes, with quotations, because these mother cluckers are literally just beefed up basic mobs. I don't get why they did this at all. And the side missions do get better after this, but not by much. Another side mission I want to talk about right quick is this El Ravnica one. It's another laboratory, and the level design is actually pretty different from the main mission, which I appreciate. It does have a recycled boss fight though, but then again, all of these dang side missions have reused boss fights. I'll talk about the final mission in a later segment, but first, I want to talk about the bosses. Every Souls game needs good bosses, and this game does have some good bosses. A lot of the bosses in this game can range from great to absolute trash. So earlier I mentioned how bosses have very bloated health bars. And yes, it is very true, and it is very, very evident in the second half of the game. And this leads into one of my main issues with this game and many other games. Why do devs keep bloating health bars? This has become a thing in gaming recently, and it's becoming so tiring. A lot of games I come aware of recently / played has had this issue. Namely, games like Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Marvel Midnight Suns, Black Myth Wukong, and Persona 5X. Yeah, I know that's a gacha game, but I still think it counts. Heck, even Elden Ring has this issue with some bosses, including DLC bosses. Now, there are far more games that have this issue than the ones I've mentioned, and like a honorable mention is apparently Borderlands. I've read online about this, and yeah, Borderlands apparently has ridiculously bloated health bars. But for the sake of the video, I will not talk about all of those games. Now, going back to Khazan, yes, this game definitely has the aforementioned bloated health bars, even almost to a ridiculous degree. Even using stuff like Brent guards, skills, and reflections, the bosses still have way too much health. By the end of the game, I was doing literally 1,470 damage per hit. That sounds insane, right? Well, unfortunately, in this game, that is still too little, apparently. Also, I forgot to mention that even with stuff like elemental damage, it still isn't enough. I was doing 22,000 damage with some of my attacks, and it still wasn't enough. Now, instead of talking about boss bars, let me actually talk about the bosses themselves. I can say for certain that they can be good. Yeah, after playing this game on New Game Plus, I kind of changed my mind on that. I don't think the bosses were as good as I thought they were. They're actually a little bit worse, to be frank. A lot of the move sets for the bosses can tend to be unpredictable and not well telegraphed, like at all. And they also tend to have really weird perfect block and parry windows. And also, sometimes they just take way too long to wind up an attack. Kind of reminds me of this one clip of Morgoth from Elden Ring I've seen once. We just kept charging up an attack just to never use it. Yeah, it kind of gets that bad. But the bosses in this game are cool, though. I liked a lot of them, except for the side missions bosses. Oh gosh, the side mission bosses. All of them are bad. And that is not an exaggeration. Okay, maybe it is an exaggeration. Not all of them are abhorrent, but they aren't the best, nor are they that good for that matter. Most side missions just recycle bosses or even base mobs but give them a bigger health bar. I'm gonna be honest, if you're gonna make side missions in a video game, please at least give them original boss fights, and please stop being like Yakuza.
You Yakuza!
So one of the worst bosses in this entire game is Rankus. I hate this guy, I hate his brother, I hate his entire family line. This boss has so much health and very unpredictable attacks in very not well telegraphed attacks. It's so many AoEs. And his brother is honestly much worse. He has even more health and he has even more AoEs. And the AoEs are even bigger. Are you kidding me, man? And so somehow it gets even worse. Because this boss I'm about to mention is actually the worst boss in the game. Say hello to Traka. Oh boy, I hate this stupid tailed jellyfish lady. She has way too much health, and also the amount of damage she pumps out is actually ridiculous. And to make matters worse, if you don't use one of these thingamajigs that increase your resistances for water or frost, whatever it is, you will die. I had to lock in for the rest of this boss just to beat her. Fudge you, Traka. Moving on. So there's actually an endgame boss that I like, and it's this lady, Reese. She was Ozma's fiance, but she got killed. It's because the Emperor wanted to marry her, but she rejected him, and she wanted to marry Ozma, and so the Emperor got mad and got her killed. What a loser. Anyway, her boss is pretty good. She unfortunately falls victim to the health bar bloating, though it's mostly noticeable in her second phase, but despite it all, I think her boss was alright. Now, there was one character that I neglected to mention in the overview segment of this video. So this character is actually a boss fight, and her name is Balerion, and oh my goodness, I think I may be into elves now.
She is such a bad though.
So this character is actually not that important, besides the fact that she helped a certain character out with some research, and that character wanted her dead, so she hid out in the mountains and sealed them off with magic. So the question is, who is this character? Well, I'm going to spoil who it is in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it's Ozma. And if it wasn't clear already, Ozma's the main antagonist and final boss of this game. He's also the Master of Chaos, and he became the Master of Chaos due to multiple factors. Number 1, he discovered that his fiancée Reese died by the Empire's hands. And number 2, he was named a traitor even after all that he and Khazan had done for everyone.
In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you.
So he eventually began to hate humans and discovered chaos, and now he's the master of chaos. And yes, the title screen was literally a spoiler like I mentioned earlier. Okay, so let's talk about the ending of this game. The first Berserker Khazan has 3 endings. 1, the good ending. 2, the bad ending. And 3, the true ending, aka the first Berserker ending. I don't know how the endings look. I didn't bother to get most of them. I only got the true ending, mostly because I didn't feel like replaying the game 3 different times to get all of them. So if you want to know how the other endings look, just look it up on YouTube. Anyway, so getting the true ending is actually quite complicated. You gotta get 15 golden collectibles. I don't remember where all of them were. And also, you gotta get 3 disc fragments. I don't remember where all of them were either. And you have to complete 2 bonus missions, and one of them is the Karen's Chain side mission and the Transcendental Sword side mission. And yes, all of these side missions have reused bosses. All of them are recycled, just like every other side mission, which sucks. And with all of these things completed, you can now get the true ending where you fight against Ozma, who now looks like he comes from both Shin Megami Tensei and somehow Devil May Cry. Before I talk about the boss, I want to talk about the final mission. Final mission of this game was pretty good. It uses mechanics that were never used in any other mission, and not all of the enemies were spongy. And also, I first for Souls-like platforming. Too bad it's some bad platforming though. It feels like a Roblox hobby. Unfortunately, this level falls victim to something that affected another Souls-like that I talked about before, and that is the lack of enemy variety. This seems to be a recurring thing in most Souls-like, because unfortunately, even the best Souls-like, Liza P, falls victim to this as well, and it's just so confusing, man. Like, I know it's hard to make video games, I know it's hard to design models, animations, / movesets, but still, more enemy variety would just be greatly appreciated. Okay, now it's time to move on to my favorite boss in the game, the final boss. Ozma is a really cool boss, and I really like the moveset, for the most part at least. A lot of the moves are well telegraphed, and also a lot of the moves are just cool. But yeah, the boss downgrades in the second phase. So his moves aren't very well telegraphed, and they are extremely unpredictable. And his attacks fill up the chaos meter so much, to the point where without one of these thingamajigs that increase chaos resistance, you will lose half or more of your health bar until you get rid of the chaos. Oh wait, hold on, it gets worse. So you know about the counterattack? Yeah, they use it quite a bit here, but the window for it is very tight, and even if you get it right, it still doesn't work. This game has this issue a lot. At least his transformation cutscene is rad though. Okay, wait, it gets even worse. Actually, no, it gets actually better. So phase 3 is a thing, and it only exists if you get the true ending. But the cool thing is that this phase starts you in the phantom form. And what's even cooler is that he has less health and better telegraphed attacks. Also, he uses a really cool mechanic that I have never seen being used at all. The more you use brutal attacks on him, the more his health bar gets destroyed. It's kind of like getting inflicted with chaos. It's very neat. So after you beat him up, Blade Phantom will chain him up using Karen's chains, and then Khazan will stab Ozma with a Transcendental Sword, and it's over. Ozma apologizes to Khazan, and he drops a tear on the blade.
Uh-oh.
The Transcendental Sword causes him to explode or something? I don't know. This ending kind of confused me when I first beat the game, because I was like, oh man, what is even going on? So Khazan will go to Ozma's house and just reminisce about the old days, and then Khazan comes across Ozma's journal, which mentions this eye he discovered, and this is how chaos was born. Blade Phantom then informs Khazan about how the eye influenced almost everything on this journey, and Khazan realizes that he is yet to get his vengeance. And the end. So basically, that eye is either the symbol or manifestation of whomever informed Ozma about the chaos, and it's also the same person who told the Emperor that Khazan and Ozma will be the reasons for his downfall. And honestly, this ending was pretty good. I actually think it raises the score for this game a bit, but I feel like there could have been more. Like, it feels like they may have been planning some kind of future sequel or paid DLC, and that's why the game ends like this. But yeah, it was pretty good. It is pretty good. So what is my honest opinion on this game? I thought it was pretty good. It could have been better though. I think this game could have leaned more into the hack and slash category, and I think the game might have benefited a lot from that. Now, another thing I want to say is that the music in this game is alright. Now, I don't know if this is a hot take, but the music was kind of forgettable. Like, usually these Souls-likes will have some pretty memorable soundtracks, sometimes. I only say that because Lords of the Fallen 2023 was pretty generic when it came to its soundtrack, not even gonna lie. No offense to the composers though. But unfortunately, Khazan, design kind of has that same issue. It kind of sounds like it was trying to replicate Dark Souls, and that's not really a good thing. I'm not saying the whole soundtrack is like this, you know. I'm not saying the whole thing is bad, but it could have been better, you know. Now, this game also could have used some improvements in the bosses department. I've already explained why the bosses were kind of an issue earlier, so I don't need to explain it again. But this game tends to fall off in some categories like bosses and level design, but it does pick itself back up, especially in the latter half. But just like the saying goes, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. That men begin. If I were to rate the first Berserker Khazan, I would rate it a clean 7.9 out of 10. I only rated it lower than Stranger of Paradise due to some various factors that lowers this game's score. Mostly stuff that I talked about earlier, like level design, recycled bosses, etc, etc. Well, I think that's about it for me, dog. I'm out of here.